Hi, boys and girls. So today I wanted to share with you a few ways in how I've overcome my fear and anxieties. And hopefully these can help you also overcome your fears and anxieties. I've got to be honest, I never felt as if I had too much anxiety in my life, although I probably had after being diagnosed with cancer twice at an early age, and the fear of that recurring, whatevs, definitely been prevalent in my life. And but other than that, I guess I've quite a bit of fear in regards to my health, and so I get a little. My wife teases me and says, "Man, you get a little angsty and PTSD like when you have certain health things going on." And so I want to share just some things that have really benefited me. And the first of those things is learning the teachings of Buddha, and really more so than learning the teachings of Buddha, primarily was learning his initiation, his initiation into questioning the nature of suffering, like why do people suffer? And he had three experiences. He was born a king, Siddhartha, if any of you know the story of the Buddha, but he was born a king, a prince, and he goes out, his father kind of protects him his whole life, and then he goes out into his pretty much his kingdom, into the streets, and one day he sees somebody who's sick, and he asks his guard, what is that? And he says, Siddhartha, that's sickness, and that will befall us all. We will all get sick. We don't always stay healthy and youthful our entire lives. And then he goes out a second day and he sees somebody who's poor and hungry. And he says to his guard, what is that? And he says, well, that's poverty. That's homelessness. That's, that person is sad because things change, life changes. Nothing is temporary. That person's money, it was temporary. And then his third venture out into the streets, he sees somebody who's laying by the side, dead. And he asks his guard, what is that? And the guard says, well, Buddha, that's death. And none of us can get out of this journey that we call life alive. Like, that's inevitable. And so after seeing these three things, Buddha comes to these questioning of these three principles, if you will, of why do we get sick? Why do we die? And why do things change? So ultimately, we have to come to the understanding that 1, we will get sick. 2, we most definitely will die. And 3, all things are temporary. Everything changes. The good, the highs, the joys will change. The sadness, the depression, the fear will change. And so, the story of the Buddha is a good one because he goes on his little journey for the next 6-7 years until he finds the root cause of suffering, the nature of suffering. What causes, how can I rid myself of this? Not rid myself, but how can I overcome these barriers to this temporary experience, this temporary life? And when I understood those three things, it sounds a little bit bleak. Buddha has these 4 noble truths, and the first noble truth is all of life is suffering. And you hear that and you go, that's that sucks. Why am I human then? Why did I choose to be human? Why am I here? And the second noble truth is suffering is caused by attachment. It's caused by clinging. It's caused by grasping. Third noble truth is there is a way out of suffering. And the fourth noble truth is the path to nirvana, the path to awakening, the path to liberation, freedom, moksha. And that's the eightfold path. So it's the righteous way, these 8 righteous paths, right? And it's right thought, right action, right word, right deed, ethics, job, meditation, contemplation. I think that's it. But anyways, those teachings for me primarily were tough because especially after going through cancer twice, you never want to go through that again. So anyone that's watching this that's had cancer, you can understand my quandary. But as I began to contemplate those three principles, that we all get sick, we all die, and everything is temporary, as downtrodden as that may seem, it actually made my experiences more robust and more full, because I began to understand with practice, with meditation, which will come later, that each moment is a blessing because of those three things. That the anger that I'm feeling right now in traffic at somebody cutting me off, and that most definitely does not mean that I stopped feeling angry or frustrated or pissed off. It just meant that in the moment, with practice, I was able to deal with it better. I was able to see it for what it was, that ultimately it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was. And I had the opportunity to decide if it was good or bad for me in that moment. So without my investment in how I was expecting the situation to become, or the outcome of the situation, I could experience it fully. And in all honesty, that allowed me to use my understanding of the law of attraction even more, because in the acceptance fully of the present moment, I can then determine what I want as a result of my actions and thoughts and words in this present moment. And I can begin to create my reality with full intention, rather than just reacting like a chicken with my head cut off, going from moment to moment, back and forth, happy, sad, happy, sad. I have it, I don't have it, I have it, I don't have it. Instead, the whole world was merely an illusion, was merely a mirage, a game, a fun game. And a game's no fun without the highs and the lows. Did that happen overnight? Abso-frickin-lutely not. It took many, many, many years of practice. And it took many years of suffering, I gotta be honest. From the time I was 14 to about 21 was a constant state of suffering, of getting thrown around on the waves of life, in the ocean of life, just bouncing around and around and around and getting thrown around and getting a headache. It sucked. It really did. It wasn't fun at all. But as I was drawn to, as I attracted things into my life, because I wanted to know that cause for me, my cause of suffering. Why am I suffering so much? Why do I keep getting sick? Why can't I heal? These questions, I was drawing into my life the answers for myself, which number one started with meditation. And so my practices that I began implementing in my life so that I could feel free, so that I could feel that endless joy. Number one was meditation. So I'd spend 20 minutes a day, close my eyes, turn on a timer, and I would either listen to a guided meditation, I'd do a silent meditation, turn on some music, and I would just sit and I would just be present, feeling my breath, listening to the sounds, understanding that my body was functioning without me. My breath was moving without my conscious recognition that it was happening, or conscious control that it was happening, that I needed to make it breathe. It was just breathing. The thoughts in my head were just happening. So through meditation, I was able to step back and go, okay, well, if my body is working on its own, then this awareness can't be the body. And if I have an awareness that my thoughts are just happening with or without me there, they just are like clouds passing in the sky, then I'm not my mind. So who am I? And that was the journey that was kind of fun. Getting to understand myself beyond my mind, beyond my body, and going as deep as the self, my inner being, my spirit, the infinite one. And having those experiences were the cement, to the learning, the knowledge that I was gaining from the other practices that I was implementing, which were reading a lot of sacred texts. I guess I read some self-help books as well, not a lot of new agey stuff, which I enjoy, but primarily it was the deep spiritual texts of the Upanishads or the Emerald Tablets, or I like the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, or the Dhammapada, Bhagavad Gita, the Bible. These different books that had such long-standing wisdom within them. In the right moments, as I continued to study them, kept seeping and seeping and seeping into my conscious brain. And in the meditation was actually having an experience of what I was just reading about. And as I continued to practice the meditation and reading these books, I began developing an innate and an intimate relationship with my intuition. So I began practicing ways to connect with that part of me that is beyond my mind, that is beyond my body, that in the midst of meditation, when I feel as empty as possible, that awareness, I developed that daily practice to connect with that and learn the feelings in the gut, in the heart, that would direct me in the right way when I was feeling fearful or anxious. And so my journey isn't much different than many others' journeys, and it's not that difficult when we begin to practice those, I don't want to say practices because that sounds redundant, but when we begin to practice those behaviors or those ways of living, right? I made meditation a way of living. I learned communicating with my intuition, my inner being, the angels that I felt were surrounding me on a daily basis. And by doing so, those simple principles of the Buddha kept rooting down deeper and deeper and deeper in my heart. And so in moments when I'd feel fearful or anxious, doesn't mean they disappeared, but I was able to overcome them in the sense that I was able to accept them fully for what they are. And I understood the relationship between the story in my mind, the thoughts I was thinking, and the actual experience and situation that was occurring, and began to understand that, oh, I'm feeling fearful as a result of telling myself this story about this situation, or anxious about this story that I'm telling myself about this situation, when in reality the situation was just a situation and nobody else was feeling fearful or anxious about that situation. And so ultimately that led to me being able to do that shadow work, that inner deeper work of assessing for myself, why am I feeling this way? What situations have caused me to begin to feel fearful or anxious when I'm in this situation? When something happens with my health and I start having a skin blemish, or I don't feel that good physically, Like in May, this past May, it's October now, I thought I had relapsed and I had a complete breakdown. I was so anxious and fearful. And it stemmed from the fact that I am afraid beyond all hell, all heaven, to get cancer again. But then as I reread and rediscovered those intimate truths, that it's okay because I will get sick again. In one way or another, maybe not cancer, but I may get sick again, and that's okay. And guess what? I'm going to die, and so are you. And that's okay too, because ultimately we're eternal beings. The soul, the awareness behind the mind, behind the body, the perceiver of all of this, the creator of all of this, is eternal, and that's who we are in our essence. And so the things that I had learned in my Christian upbringing, my Catholic upbringing, were no longer resonant with my heart, with my intuitive knowing. And I began to come to the understanding and the truth that each and every one of us is an eternal being. We are an expression of the essence of the source of life. And death is just part of this momentary human experience. And the suffering is just a part of this momentary human experience. And guess what? It makes it more fun because nobody likes a Pollyanna all the time. No, I'm kidding. We like Pollyannas. But, I'm Pollyanna. But the suffering is necessary. It's that contrast to appreciate the beauty of life. When I'm learning German, so ich habe Hunger. When I'm hungry, I can appreciate the taste of food. When I'm thirsty, I can appreciate the quench of thirst of water. When I'm horny, I can really appreciate that orgasm. You know, when I'm sick, I really appreciate being healthy. And that's just the nature of life. Opposite values are complementary. They just are. But if we want to be free of constantly being thrown around on the ocean, on the surface of the ocean of life, eventually we're going to have to go deeper and understand that we are the water. We're not the boat on top of the water. And that the ocean is going to move. The waves are going to happen. And that is beautiful. And that's part of why we're here. And so this is a long ass video. But yeah. So my practices to overcome, and the practices I would suggest, would be to meditate 20 minutes a day, silently, with music, or with a guided meditation, and just sit there and be. There's plenty of other ways to do it, but those are the simple ways at first. My second practice is just to read books with lots of wisdom within them that will bring forth and remind you of the beauty of your spirit, of the beauty of this life experience. And the third practice would be to develop an intimate relationship with your inner being, with your higher self, with your source, with your intuition. And those three practices will lead you very, very far in your journey. And eventually, hopefully, you'll come to the place where you can see, oh, okay, I have the opportunity to suffer. Don't have to suffer. Because once I accept that I will get sick, I and the people around me will die, will transition into the non-physical. And ultimately, Every single moment is temporary. So in every moment, I have the opportunity to be grateful for this present moment. And that's it for today, you boys and girls. I hope this hopefully helps you. If it did, give it a like, give it a share, give it a comment. Tell me something that you're going through, and maybe we can work it out together. But anyways, all right, you guys. As always, I appreciate you watching. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you next time. I love you.